The cameras had been waiting for months. Every photographer, every journalist, every royal watcher held their breath as the black car pulled up to the royal festival hall. Behind those tinted windows sat a woman who had disappeared from public view, leaving the world to wonder, to worry, to whisper. Then, the door opened. Princess Catherine stepped onto the red carpet, and, in that instant, everything changed. The flash of cameras became a symphony of light. The murmur of the crowd fell silent. Because this wasn't just another royal appearance, this was a declaration. Her hair caught the London evening light in a way it never had before. The diamonds at her wrist sparkled like captured stars. But it was something else, something deeper in her eyes, that made the world stop and stare. This was Catherine as no one had ever seen her, transformed, radiant, and absolutely unstoppable. The BAFTAs had seen many memorable moments, but nothing would compare to what was about to unfold on this February evening. This was more than a comeback. This was a revelation. The morning sun filtered through the windows of Adelaide Cottage as Catherine stood before her mirror, running her fingers through hair that would soon make headlines around the world. The reflection staring back at her was different from the woman who had stepped away from public life months earlier. There was something new in her eyes, a quiet strength that had been forged in the privacy of her own battles. Her phone buzzed constantly on the dresser. Messages from stylists, palace officials, and well-meaning friends all asking the same question: was she really ready for this? The BAFTAs would be her first major public appearance since her extended absence, and the world was watching with the intensity of a nation starved for answers. Catherine picked up the phone and scrolled through the messages, each one a reminder of the weight she carried. The speculation had been endless during her time away. Tabloids had painted wild theories, social media had erupted with concern and conspiracy, and, through it all, she had remained silent. Now, the silence would finally be broken, but not with words. With presence. Her hairstylist arrived early, carrying cases filled with tools and possibilities. They had discussed this moment for weeks, how to reveal the new Catherine without shocking the world too dramatically. The hair was the key. It needed to be different enough to signal change, familiar enough to comfort those who loved her, and stunning enough to remind everyone why she had captured hearts from the very beginning. As the scissors made their first careful cuts, Catherine felt something she hadn't experienced in months: excitement. Not the nervous energy that had plagued her during the difficult times, but genuine anticipation for what lay ahead. Each snip of the scissors felt like shedding old skin, preparing for a transformation that went far deeper than appearances. The diamond bracelet sat in its velvet box on her dressing table, catching the light like a promise. It had belonged to Diana, passed down through a line of strong women who had faced their own storms. Today, it would grace Catherine's wrist as she stepped back into the spotlight, carrying the legacy of those who had walked this path before her. Prince William entered the room quietly, his eyes immediately drawn to his wife's reflection in the mirror. He had watched her struggle, supported her through the darkness, and now he was witnessing her emergence. The pride in his expression was unmistakable, mixed with the protective concern that never quite left his features when it came to Catherine and the relentless public scrutiny she faced. They spoke in the comfortable shorthand of a couple who had weathered storms together. No grand speeches or dramatic declarations, just small observations and gentle encouragement. William adjusted his own formal wear while sharing amusing anecdotes about previous BAFTA ceremonies, his way of keeping the mood light while acknowledging the significance of the evening ahead. The children bounded into the room, their energy infectious and grounding. George, Charlotte, and Louis had lived through their mother's absence from public life with the resilience that children possess, but Catherine could see the questions in their young faces. They understood that today was important, that their mother was doing something brave, even if they couldn't fully grasp the magnitude of public attention that would follow. Catherine knelt to their level, her newly styled hair falling perfectly into place. She promised them ice cream after the ceremony, a normal reward for an anything but normal day. The ordinariness of the promise grounded her, reminding her that beneath all the ceremony and speculation, she remained who she had always been: a mother, a wife, a woman finding her way. The dress arrived in the early afternoon, carried by assistants who moved with the reverence of people handling something precious. It had been designed specifically for this moment, with input from Catherine herself about how she wanted to feel when she wore it. Not just beautiful, but powerful. Not just elegant, but authentic. As Catherine slipped into the gown, she felt the transformation completing itself. The mirror reflected someone who looked familiar yet entirely new. The hair framed her face in a way that highlighted features that had been softened by months away from the public eye. The bracelet caught the light with every movement, Diana's diamonds seeming to dance with approval. Her makeup artist worked with gentle precision, enhancing rather than masking, understanding that this evening was about revelation, not concealment. Each brushstroke added to the confidence building in Catherine's chest, the certainty that she was ready for what lay ahead. The palace staff moved through their preparations with military precision, but Catherine caught the glances, the barely suppressed smiles of approval. These people had served the royal family for years, had seen countless appearances and ceremonies, yet something about this evening felt different to them too. There was electricity in the air, anticipation that went beyond the usual pre-event nervous energy. Security briefings followed, routes discussed and contingencies planned. The world's media would be there in force, and everyone understood that this was more than just another royal engagement. This was a statement, a return, a moment that would be analyzed and discussed for months to come. As the afternoon wore on, Catherine found herself drawn to the window, looking out at the grounds where she had found peace during her time away from public life. The gardens had been her sanctuary, the place where she had rediscovered herself away from the cameras and expectations. Now she was preparing to leave that sanctuary, but she was taking its strength with her. The car arrived as the London evening began to paint the sky in shades of gold and pink. Catherine took one last look in the mirror, seeing not just her reflection but the reflection of everyone who had supported her through the difficult months. She was ready to step back onto the stage, not as the same person who had left, but as someone stronger, more authentic, more herself than ever before. The drive through London felt different than she remembered. The streets seemed brighter, the energy more electric. Or perhaps that was simply her own transformation changing how she saw the world around her. As they approached the Royal Festival Hall, she could see the crowds gathering, the red carpet stretching like a river of possibility toward the grand entrance. Prince William squeezed her hand as they sat in the car, waiting for the signal to emerge. No words were necessary. In that touch was the acknowledgement of everything they had been through together, everything that had led to this moment, and the quiet confidence that whatever came next, they would face it together. The door handle turned. The world was waiting. Catherine took a breath that felt like stepping into her future, and prepared to show them all exactly who she had become. The roar hit her first. Not the polite applause she had grown accustomed to over the years, but something deeper, more emotional. As Catherine's foot touched the red carpet, a wave of sound rolled across the crowd that lined the barriers, cheers mixed with gasps of delight, cameras clicking like mechanical heartbeats, and, underneath it all, the unmistakable hum of genuine affection from people who had missed her more than they had realized. She paused for just a moment, allowing herself to absorb the energy. The new haircut caught the camera flashes in a way that seemed almost magical, each strand reflecting light like spun gold. But it was the way she carried herself that truly captured attention. There was something different in her posture, a confidence that seemed to radiate from within. The diamond bracelet caught the evening light as she raised her hand in a gentle wave, Diana's jewels sparkling like captured starlight. The photographers called her name from every direction, their voices blending into a symphony of professional desperation and genuine excitement. This wasn't just another royal photo opportunity, this was the moment they had all been waiting for. As she moved down the carpet, Catherine's training kicked in, but with a new twist. Years of royal protocol had taught her the mechanics of these events, but tonight she moved with genuine pleasure rather than dutiful compliance. She stopped to chat with officials, her laugh ringing out clear and authentic over the ambient noise of the crowd. The assembled celebrities and film industry figures watched her approach with barely concealed curiosity. Many of them were accustomed to being the center of attention, but tonight they found themselves relegated to supporting roles in Catherine's story. A-list actors straightened their postures as she passed, directors abandoned conversations mid-sentence to catch a glimpse of her, and producers whispered among themselves about the unmistakable star quality she radiated. One particularly seasoned entertainment journalist, who had covered every major red carpet event for 2 decades, found herself genuinely moved by what she was witnessing. This wasn't the careful, measured princess she remembered from previous appearances. This woman moved with purpose, smiled with genuine warmth, and carried herself with the confidence of someone who had faced challenges and emerged stronger. The questions came in rapid-fire succession from the press pen, but Catherine handled them with grace that seemed effortless. When asked about her time away from public duties, she spoke briefly but sincerely about the importance of taking time for family and personal growth. Her words were carefully chosen, but they carried weight that went far beyond typical royal responses. Inside the Royal Festival Hall, the atmosphere was electric with anticipation. The BAFTA ceremony had always been a prestigious event, but tonight it felt historic. Guests who had arrived early watched the live feed of Catherine's red carpet appearance on screens throughout the venue, their conversations pausing as she commanded attention with every step. The seating arrangements had been planned months in advance, but as Catherine entered the auditorium, it became clear that she would be the evening's true star regardless of where she sat. Heads turned as she made her way to her designated area, the rustle of expensive gowns and the clink of champagne glasses creating a backdrop to her entrance. Her conversation with fellow attendees revealed the depth of her engagement with the film industry. During her time away from public life, Catherine had clearly been preparing for this return, studying recent releases, understanding emerging trends, and developing genuine opinions about the craft of filmmaking. This wasn't superficial royal interest, this was informed passion. When she spoke with a young filmmaker whose debut feature had received critical acclaim, her questions demonstrated real knowledge of the production process. She asked about the challenges of working with a limited budget, the decision-making process behind key casting choices, and the balance between artistic vision and commercial viability. The filmmaker walked away from the conversation genuinely impressed by her insight. The ceremony began with the traditional fanfare, but even the most experienced BAFTA attendees could sense something different in the air. As the cameras swept across the audience during the opening montage, they lingered noticeably on Catherine, and her reactions to the various film clips showed genuine engagement and emotional investment in the stories being celebrated. Her laughter at comedic moments was infectious, her applause for dramatic achievements was heartfelt, and her attention never wavered even during the inevitable lengthy acceptance speeches that usually had audiences checking their phones. She seemed to be genuinely enjoying herself in a way that transformed the entire energy of the room. During the first commercial break, the networking began in earnest. Industry figures who had admired her from afar found excuses to introduce themselves or their colleagues. Directors pitched potential documentary projects about causes close to her heart, producers mentioned film premieres that would benefit from royal patronage, and actors shared personal stories about how her public work had impacted their own charitable endeavors. But it was during a conversation with a veteran actress known for her work with children's charities that Catherine's true depth became apparent. Their discussion moved seamlessly from the technical aspects of a recent performance to the broader impact of storytelling on social change. Catherine's insights were informed not just by royal briefings but by personal experience and genuine intellectual curiosity. The diamond bracelet caught the light as she gestured during conversations, Diana's legacy literally sparkling with every movement. Several people commented on the piece, recognizing its significance and the thoughtful choice to wear it on such an important evening. Catherine spoke briefly about the jewelry's history, her words carrying deep respect for the woman who had worn it before her. As the ceremony continued, Catherine's presence began to influence the event itself. Presenters seemed to deliver their lines with extra energy when the cameras showed her in the audience. Winners thanked her specifically in their acceptance speeches, acknowledging her support for the arts and her return to public life. The evening was becoming as much about her comeback as about celebrating cinematic achievements. During a particularly moving tribute segment to films that had tackled difficult social issues, cameras captured Catherine wiping away tears. But these weren't the careful, controlled emotions of royal protocol, these were genuine human responses to powerful storytelling. The authenticity of her reactions resonated through the broadcast, reaching viewers who were seeing a side of her they had never witnessed before. The intermission provided another opportunity for deeper conversations. Catherine found herself surrounded by people eager to discuss not just films but the broader cultural impact of entertainment. She spoke knowledgeably about the responsibility that comes with platforms and influence, drawing parallels between her own role and the obligations faced by those in creative industries. Her interactions with young actors and filmmakers were particularly noteworthy. Rather than offering generic encouragement, she asked specific questions about their experiences, their goals, and their perspectives on how their work could contribute to positive social change. These conversations revealed someone who had used her time away from public life not just for rest but for serious consideration of her role and influence. As the ceremony moved toward its conclusion, it became increasingly clear that Catherine's presence had elevated the entire event. What began as a standard industry celebration had become something more significant, a demonstration of how authentic engagement and genuine interest can transform any gathering into something meaningful and memorable. The final award presentations carried extra weight with her in attendance, as if the celebration of artistic achievement had been validated by the presence of someone who clearly understood and appreciated the craft being honored. As the final award was presented and the ceremony drew to a close, something remarkable happened that no one had anticipated. The traditional polite applause that typically marks the end of such events was replaced by something extraordinary, a standing ovation that began in the front rows and rippled through the entire auditorium like a wave of genuine appreciation. Catherine looked genuinely surprised by the response, her hand moving instinctively to her chest in a gesture of humble acknowledgement. The diamond bracelet caught the stage lights one final time as she rose from her seat, and, for a moment, she seemed to embody everything the evening had celebrated: grace under pressure, authentic emotion, and the power of genuine human connection. The after-party at the Grosvenor House Hotel buzzed with energy that was entirely focused on Catherine's remarkable evening. Conversations that typically centered on box office numbers, upcoming projects, and industry gossip had been replaced by discussions about her transformation, her insights during the ceremony, and the obvious passion she had displayed for the craft of filmmaking. A renowned British director who had initially been skeptical about royal involvement in the arts found himself genuinely impressed by Catherine's depth of knowledge. During their conversation, she had referenced not just mainstream successes but independent films and documentaries that had tackled challenging social issues. Her questions demonstrated understanding that could only come from serious engagement with the material. The hairstyle that had caused such a sensation on the red carpet continued to be a topic of fascination throughout the evening. It wasn't just the technical perfection of the cut that impressed people, it was how it seemed to reflect an internal transformation. The style was sophisticated yet approachable, royal yet modern, perfectly embodying the evolution everyone was witnessing in real time. Young filmmakers who had managed to secure invitations to the exclusive after-party found themselves drawn into conversations with Catherine that went far beyond typical royal small talk. She spoke with genuine curiosity about the challenges of emerging artists, the importance of diverse storytelling, and the role of film in creating social change. Her engagement was so authentic that several attendees later described the experience as inspiring rather than merely impressive. The international media coverage was already beginning to paint the picture of what many were calling her most successful public appearance to date. Fashion editors were preparing articles about the hairstyle and bracelet, but entertainment journalists were focusing on something deeper: the obvious transformation in her confidence and presence that suggested this was just the beginning of a new chapter. Social media exploded with images and videos from the evening, but the response was notably different from typical royal coverage. Instead of focusing solely on fashion choices or protocol moments, people were sharing clips of her genuine laughter, her thoughtful reactions to film presentations, and her animated conversations with industry figures. The authenticity everyone had witnessed was translating directly to public appreciation. As the evening wound down, Catherine found herself in a quieter corner of the venue, engaged in conversation with a small group that included a documentary filmmaker working on a project about mental health awareness. The discussion had evolved naturally from her questions about the technical aspects of documentary production to the broader impact of storytelling on social stigma and public understanding. Prince William watched from across the room, his pride evident to anyone who cared to observe. He had seen his wife struggle through difficult periods, had supported her during her time away from public life, and now he was witnessing her emergence as someone even stronger and more impactful than before. The transformation was remarkable, but what impressed him most was how genuine it appeared to everyone present. The conversation with the documentary team led to an impromptu discussion about potential future projects. Catherine's knowledge of mental health issues, combined with her obvious comfort with the filmmaking process, created possibilities that excited everyone involved. By the end of their chat, tentative plans were being discussed for collaboration that could bring important stories to wider audiences. As guests began to depart, the feedback Catherine received was unanimously positive, but, more importantly, it was specific and substantive. People weren't just complimenting her appearance or thanking her for attending, they were engaging with the insights she had shared, the questions she had asked, and the genuine interest she had demonstrated throughout the evening. The ride back to Adelaide Cottage was quiet but filled with satisfaction. Catherine looked out at the London streets, now empty of the crowds that had cheered her arrival hours earlier, and reflected on how different she felt compared to the nervous anticipation of the morning. The evening had been more than successful, it had been transformative for everyone involved. The bracelet rested against her wrist, Diana's diamonds now carrying the energy of another significant evening in royal history. Catherine understood that she had honored the legacy while creating her own, building on the foundation of those who came before her while establishing a unique path forward. Prince William's quiet pride filled the car as they traveled through the city. He had always believed in Catherine's strength and capabilities, but even he had been impressed by how naturally she had commanded the room, how effortlessly she had connected with people from completely different worlds, and how genuine her engagement had been throughout the evening. The morning newspapers would be filled with images and analysis, but Catherine already knew that the real success of the evening couldn't be captured in photographs or measured in column inches. She had proven to herself, and to everyone watching, that her time away from public life had been used for growth rather than retreat, for strengthening rather than weakness. Back at home, as she carefully removed the diamond bracelet and placed it in its velvet-lined case, Catherine caught sight of herself in the mirror. The haircut still looked perfect despite the long evening, but, more importantly, the confidence in her eyes remained steady and strong. This wasn't a temporary transformation for the cameras, this was who she had become. The children were asleep, but she checked on each of them, understanding more clearly than ever that everything she did in public life was ultimately about creating a better world for them and their generation. The evening's success felt meaningful because it had demonstrated her ability to use her platform effectively, to engage authentically, and to contribute substantively to causes and communities she cared about. As she prepared for bed, Catherine's phone buzzed with messages from friends, family, and colleagues who had watched the ceremony or seen the coverage. Each message reinforced what she already knew: the evening had marked not just a successful return to public life, but the beginning of a new and more impactful phase of her role. The BAFTA evening would be remembered for many things: the stunning new haircut, the sparkling diamond bracelet, the elegant fashion choices, but its true significance lay in what it revealed about Catherine's evolution. She had used her time away from the spotlight not to retreat from her responsibilities but to prepare for them more thoroughly than ever before. Looking ahead, she could see possibilities that hadn't existed before her transformation. Collaborations with filmmakers, deeper engagement with causes she cared about, and a more authentic connection with the public that would allow her to use her influence more effectively than ever before. The evening had been a beginning rather than simply a return, a launching point for work that would define the next chapter of her public life. The last thought before sleep was simple but profound: she was exactly where she was meant to be, doing exactly what she was meant to do, and, for the first time in months, that felt not just manageable but exciting. The world had welcomed back a transformed princess, and tomorrow would bring the first opportunities to build on everything the evening had made possible.